All right. Well, welcome. My name is Billy Moore. I'm the Reference and Instruction Librarian at Concordia University Nebraska. In this video, we're going to talk about searching databases and how to do that, how to find resources that are a little higher quality, and how to make sure that you're getting research that is appropriate for class. So we'll come back to this, which is the Concordia University Library webpage. But first we'll start where most searches start, and I think that's Google. I don't disagree with starting searches on Google. I think that when we are searching, Google is a good spot to start a search and start really broad. You'll probably hear me say that quite a few times throughout this video. I like to start broad and then narrow it down from there. So if we start broad and we do a really quick Google search, we usually can go to Wikipedia and we can scroll through Wikipedia and find a bunch of good information about that. The reason that we would do that is to kind of get our feet underneath us and figure out some key terms or dates or key individuals about our topic or the research that we're trying to do. So by all means, do a Google search, do a social media or a Wikipedia search, and get some terms, get some ideas and concepts of what you're doing. Take some notes, things like that. But don't end there. That's not the place that you want to end your search. You don't want to do all of your searching in Google. Another resource that I know that students like to use is Google Scholar, and this is a good place to look as well and to start a search maybe, or maybe to come back to after you've kind of hit a couple of dead ends with some of the tools that we're going to look at later if that happens to you. But Google Scholar is really nice. It shows you kind of what's out there and what's available, but you will hit dead ends really quickly with this because you will hit paywalls. You will hit areas where you can read an abstract, but you won't be able to actually read the article itself without paying, things like that. So what we're going to talk about today is how to get through that, how to get past that paywall, and how to get articles that you can read right now for class and use those in your research project. Okay, so when we're talking about searching generally, we like to talk about the ways that Google kind of works, and we kind of understand how Google works. I put in the information and it comes back to me. What Google really is like a big phone book. It's a big index, and it will build out a list of where it thinks you want to go. And so it will find, obviously I put in social media for my search here, and it's going to say, okay, that's pretty broad. We're going to find a bunch of pages, and we ranked them for you to kind of give you an understanding of this is what we think you want regarding this search term. The tools that we're going to be using are going to work a little bit more like Amazon, and I know that's a weird way to put that when you're doing a general search, but Amazon, what they're trying to do is they're trying to keep you in their service and trying to say, we have access to this, and since we have access to this, we're going to provide you with all of the information and link you within our own ecosystem. And if you want to go outside of our ecosystem, you're going to have to leave our platform entirely. So Google is going to point you to anywhere on the web that that information is available, and Amazon is going to keep you in their ecosystem. So when you're doing searches in databases, think of searching in Amazon as opposed to searching in Google, and you'll kind of get your head in the same headspace that these databases are. Up at the top of the screen, you'll see this URL. Really, if you just want to go to cune.edu/library, it will bring you back to this same page, and that's typically the easier way to do it. But once you come here, go ahead and bookmark this page. You're going to use it a lot, and I suggest using it a lot. Once you've kind of got your general terms from your Google search taken care of, jump right into here and we'll scroll down. Basically everything that we're kind of going to go over in this video is going to be on our research page right here, so you can click on it and it will give you a breakdown of basically everything that we're talking about. So if you don't want to watch the whole video again, you can come back and just click the research button here. We're going to talk about interlibrary loan in a little bit, but these are your two big boxes that you're going to want to be familiar with, and interlibrary loan is going to help us out quite a bit, but we'll get there. So the first thing that we want to do is come down and say, how do I view the databases? So we're going to click on that button, and it's going to take us to our alphabetical list of all of our databases that we have access to. And there are a lot of databases. Now, each one of those databases is like its own little Amazon ecosystem, right? So when you go to that database, you're going to be searching just articles and just topics that are available in that database. Those databases can sometimes reach out to other databases, but very rarely do they do that. And most of the time, they're just going to provide you with resources that are specialized within that specialized database. So find a database that works well for you and maybe your topic, and there might be a bunch of different ones, but some of our main databases that we think that students have a really or that provide a lot of really good resources are going to be these big ones over to the left-hand side, and we're just going to go ahead and click on Academic Search Premier. Again, we want to start broad and then narrow ourselves down. So Academic Search Premier is the one that I teach out of the most because it is an EBSCOhost branded database. They don't pay us, we actually pay them, but they don't pay me to promote this service. The reason that I use it so much is because this setup right here, most of our databases are EBSCOhost databases, and if you learn how to use this setup, you will quickly understand how most of our databases work. So I'm going to go ahead and close those windows really quickly so that we're just focusing on this. We're going to open some more tabs. But if you get used to this, you'll understand. The other really nice thing about Academic Search Premier is it actually can reach out to all of the other EBSCOhost databases. So I'm going to click on the little link that is choose databases. I'm going to choose all of our databases, and now instead of searching one database, we're actually searching like 25, 27, 30 databases, and I'm going to hit OK. Obviously nothing has changed, it's the same format, but now we're searching a lot more databases than we would otherwise. So let's put in our same search term that we just got. And obviously when you do a Google search, you're going to come back and it's going to tell you that you're going to get so many search results in, a fraction of a second. And usually that search number is going to be in the trillions. To me, that's a fake number. It's impressive that you can get, 14 trillion search results in 14 nanoseconds or whatever the metric is. But you can't do anything with that number because it's just too big. It's too much information. So it doesn't do you as the searcher any good. And one of the ways that we're going to talk about these databases is we're going to talk about how to get to a number that is actually manageable and a number that is actually usable for you, the searcher. And one of those ways that we do that is by understanding what our search boxes do as we're putting information into them. So one of those first things that you'll notice is there are 3 search boxes, and there are these little sub boxes over here that say and, or, and not on the side. Well, the way that Academic Search Premier reads any of your information is when you and I see social media in a box like this, we automatically link it to a phrase. We understand that social media is a concept. It's a construct that we have developed in our language to understand that social media means something very specific. However, if we go ahead and do the search, for the most part, we'll get social media as that construct, but we might actually get a lot of articles that are social and media, and if those 2 words appear anywhere in an article, then Academic Search Premier is going to put that in our search results, and you'll see that it comes out with 250,000 hits roughly just by putting in these 2 words, which is pretty decent. That's not too much. We can manage that, but having a higher understanding of how this search box works is going to help you as the learner. So what am I talking about? Well, social media, when Academic Search Premier sees 2 words that are put together with a space in between, it automatically shoves an and in there. So when the computer reads social media, it's actually reading social and media. It would be the exact same as if we had broken it to 2 lines like this and said social and media. I'm searching for any article that has social and media in there. Well, you and I both know that social media is a phrase, and we want to lock that in there as such. And the way that we can do that is we can put quotation marks around our search phrase. Now it's going to break out and it's going to say any article that has that phrase in there. So if we really quickly do our search again, it probably won't change it too much, but it did knock out roughly 12,000 hits. So it did trim us down a little bit by understanding how the computer reads that space right there. Okay, so now we're only looking for social media as a phrase. Now 213,000 hits is still probably too much, so we can add, let's say, classroom. Let's say you're going to use this for educational purposes and I want to talk about social media in the classroom. I can add that in there, and suddenly we have just under 2,000. That's a really drastic dive down in scope of what we're looking for. And so now the way that this works is it's looking for any article that says social media as a phrase and the word classroom, and any other article, whether it has social media in it or just classroom in it, it doesn't matter. It's removing everything that doesn't have social media as a phrase and the word classroom in there. So we limited our scope pretty substantially. But let's say we don't necessarily want classroom. Maybe we want something like school or education, right? So maybe it's not just classroom use, but maybe we want it school-wide or in an educational context, and I'm not quite sure. Well, as you can see, we put that or in there, and we could do that again. We could break that out, and we could use or on the side here. We could do education, and then we can add a box if we really wanted to, and do whatever the other one was. And if we do it back in here, school, yeah. So we'll go ahead and say education or school, and we'll see, remember we have about 2,000 search results here, and we'll hit that, and we'll give it a second. There we go. Now we've got tons, right? And that's pretty outrageous, but what was it actually doing there? Well, again, it's looking for anything that has social media and classroom, but it's looking for anything that has social media and classroom or education or school. So the way that and works is it's a limiter. It will limit your search by looking for two phrases at the same time. Or is actually an expander. So it will look like social media or classroom or education or school, and it will rotate any of those in there. So if any of the articles have one of those three words, classroom, education, or school, and the phrase social media, it will add those in there. That's a ton of stuff. So that's how you go from 2,000 to 13 million. Again, 13 million is a fake number. We can't really do anything with that, so we'd want to limit it down a little bit more, and it's actually what we'll talk about here. So as we scroll down a little bit, we're going to use this search result as our jumping off point. So we know that we've got 13.5 million search results, but that's still way too many. So what we want to do here is we'll look, and really quickly you can see that we've got PDF full text available in this article, but this article says interlibrary loan request or an ILO request. So what that's telling us is that we have full, I can actually read the article. We have full access to it right here. I can read it. And of course, that one gives us an error. I don't know why that did that. We'll mess around with it. But anytime you see this PDF full text, you should be able to get full access to it right away. You can print that. You can download it to your machine if you want to. Anytime that you see this interlibrary loan request, it means that we have the ability to see all of the information. We can read the abstract, but we can't necessarily read the full article right away. So what we could do is we could click on this link. It'll bring us here, and then we would have to put in our information. And interlibrary loan is really nice. If we don't have full access to it, we can actually order it for you. So we actually go to another lending library and we say, hey, our student is actually asking for this article. Can we borrow it from you? They will email it to us. Then we will give you the information and you can actually access that article really quickly. So instead of hitting a paywall in Google Scholar or anywhere else, you would just ask us for that. On the flip side, if you do find an article that requires you to pay or rent it for $35 or something like that, you can actually grab that information and you can come in and you can ask us to interlibrary loan that resource for you, and we can interlibrary loan that for you as well. So if you ever hit a paywall or get to a point where you can only read the abstract and you can't find the article, Go back, ask us for interlibrary loan, and again, if I go back to our, oops, wrong button. If we go back to, why are we doing this? Our home page, you can click on the interlibrary loan and click on the order form, and you have a full order form here as well. Okay, so there are a couple ways to do interlibrary loans, and of course that timed me out, which is fine. Get out of here. There we go. So we'll, oh my gosh, it's going to force me to reset. Get out of here. Sorry about that. Everything hates me at the moment. So we're going to go back to cune.libguides. I apologize. We will reset. This is what happens when you're recording live instead of chopping it all up and editing it. But just like you guys, I am, let's do classroom again, or school and education. A really quick thing, before we broke it out on all of the different boxes, you can write it in one box as you want to keep your terms together. I like to do it this way because these terms are the ones that are related, and so by putting them in one box, it actually is easy to see. So I know that that doesn't make any sense. So we'll do this again. There we go. Now we actually have a correct search. We should be close to back where we were, and I don't know why our search results are so vastly different. But that's modern technology and computers for you. So here we are, social media, classroom or school or education. Again, we've got 46,000. I don't know why it's not the 13 million that we had a second ago. It must have changed something that I don't know what I did differently. However, you'll notice PDF full text and HTML, and then if we keep scrolling, you'll find another interlibrary loan request. So you'll see we're roughly back to where we were. Well, really quickly, if I want to trim this 46,000 down to something that I can read right now, and I only want articles that are PDF full text, I can go ahead and click on this full text limiter over here on my limit to box. So now, within reason, I should have all of those interlibrary loan request articles. I should have kicked those out of my search, and I should have only articles that I can read in PDF full text or HTML full text right now. So that's really, really nice. And we'll see how it affected our, yeah, that cut out quite a few, like 28,000 articles. That's pretty big. So now we only have 16,000 articles. And then really quickly, most of your classes are going to require you to have scholarly or peer-reviewed journal articles, and a lot of you are asking, well, what is a scholarly peer-reviewed journal article? Scholarly and peer-reviewed typically means that in order to be published, they have a rigorous editorial standard, so that article has to prove that it went through set steps, usually required by the publication. And then there are other professionals in the field, usually a board or some subcommittee of some sort, that they will send that article to. That board or subcommittee will then edit all of that and either send that article back to the authors to revise, or they will say, yes, this meets our standards as they are set, and therefore it is okay for us to publish this. So it just means that there is a critical revision process that is required typically of a board of peers and or professionals in the field. So that's what peer-reviewed means. And so scholarly is a scholarly article that went through a peer review process. Is it still impervious or perfect? No, but at the moment it's pretty close to a set standard that we can kind of hold some of this material to. So by putting in full text and scholarly peer reviewed, you now know that most of your articles have at least met some kind of rigorous standard, which again, this cut our results in half again, and now we can read them all. With 8,000, that's a pretty good number. I actually like that. Anything under 10,000 is pretty good. 1968 is pretty old. Sometimes you'll get ones that it still says like 1883, and that is a fake number. It's just throwing it out there. I have never seen an article in a database like this from 1883. JSTOR is a little different, and if we go into JSTOR here in a little bit, then you will actually see that we will get, because it's an archive, so you will actually get really old information. But with 8,000, I don't mind actually putting us into a 10 or a 5-year range just to see what's happening. So we're going to push us to a 5-year range, and again, that cut our results down in half. So 4,600 is a really good number, and now you could probably go through and start to look for, what is it that I'm looking for? How do I work with this? Can you tweet that? Twitter in the classroom. Maybe my aspect is from there. Well, I've got the feminist teacher. Maybe I'm looking at it from that perspective. Maybe I'm not. It depends on what your topic or what your paper is looking for. So play around with it. And we'll actually look at, now that we've got 4,600, we'll look at how do I decide if an article is good for my paper. So let's do a quick read. It's hard to read and talk at the same time. The influence of extramural access to mainstream culture, social media on ethnic minority students' motivation and language learning. So one thing that I deal with a lot is maybe academics, teachers who are looking for various aspects of either ELL, or they're looking for different things like that, and they're looking for how to write a paper with these specific criteria built into it. And so if that's the case, you would base your article on 4 basic things, and those basic things are the title. Well, we read this title and said, yep, that kind of makes sense to me. I like this article. So I clicked on the, really quickly, I clicked on the title of the article. You can read a bunch of information here and go directly into the article, but I want to learn and see if this article is good for me first. So I clicked on the title, and then it jumps us into, this is called the article page. So that article page will have a big breakdown of most of the information that's going to help me decide if this article is good or not. So we judged it based on the article. Okay, we've already got that part. That's good. Nobody knows who anybody is as far as authors go, so I always skip authors because sometimes there's one author, sometimes there's a bunch. It doesn't matter because I don't know who anybody is. You can search by author if you decide that you like an author, but again, it doesn't help you a ton. The next one that I like is the source. So this one is the British Journal of Educational Teaching. Now, we're in America. Typically, our focus is going to be on American studies, but I say don't discredit outside sources, whether it's Canadian, British, Australian, or from a ton of other countries that we have a lot of access to. It's all right simply because it's the Journal of Educational Technology. We're talking about social media in the classroom. That matters more to me than necessarily where it's published. Again, 2019 is really nice, and it's quite a few pages, so that tells us that, you know, this is a pretty substantial article. It's really new, and it comes from a source that talks specifically about the field that I'm kind of looking at. The really big thing that I want to point out is the subjects. Sometimes it's subject terms, sometimes it's subject or keyword terms, sometimes it's author-supplied keywords. But this is the way that these databases work. They want these articles to be read, and so what they do is they fill these subjects with key terms or a controlled vocabulary that is going to get you to find more articles like this. So if you are searching for any of these key terms, this article will appear at some point in the listing. So when you're searching, again, we started off with basically these concepts or these ideas, and we just made those up. We had no idea how they would kind of form our search when we first started. And so you kind of have to guess at what it is you're searching for, which is why we did the Google search and the Wikipedia search to start off with, because we kind of had to formulate how is our search going to take space or take form. When we start to do our research, we're going to start to see these subject terms. And if we started to see social media in education quite often, then we'd know, okay, our social media in education is a really good area. I'm getting a lot of hits on that. So I want to focus on maybe getting rid of classroom and school and just do social media and education. Down here, we have school children and elementary education. So we're getting a lot of hits on very good stuff. So maybe I do want to talk about elementary as opposed to high school or something like that. So I would actually maybe reformat this and just do elementary education and see what my hits. Now, I know that it will probably be substantially less than the 4,000 hits that we had, but maybe that's really specific to what we're looking for, and that's how you get really specific. Again, start broad, go narrow, right? So these subject terms are great, especially as it goes to getting better searches and making your search go from that broad search to a really narrow search and finding the really good articles that are going to help your paper immediately. The next thing is the abstract. You can get all the way through those first three things, and if you can't get through this abstract, or those first three things might say, yeah, this is a really good article, but then you read the abstract and you realize it goes way off in a direction that you're not actually looking for, and maybe that's the case, and then you jump out and you keep searching. And that's totally okay, because then you haven't wasted your time on an article that is, in this case, 11 or 12 pages, and you read through it and you go, wow, that was some junk. Well, here we read basically three things, some keywords, and a paragraph, and we were able to decide for ourselves, yeah, that's probably going to be pretty good, or no, I can move on from this. This is also a really good way to tell if it is a primary resource or maybe a review. Because it will break out some stuff. It will tell you we analyzed this much data. Sometimes it'll give you that n equals 2,347, something like that. It will tell you, yes, we actually pulled data and information. We did a study. It will tell you most of the time right here and tell you really quickly whether or not that is a full text article. So this is really nice. We like this article for whatever reasons that our paper is. So you can, again, click on this link. And since we had an error on the last one, let's go ahead and click on this one. Here's the full article. It'll give you a bunch of basic information, and it'll walk us through all of this stuff. And all articles are formatted a little differently. Again, that depends on what publication they printed in. But for the most part, they'll look pretty similar to this. You can go ahead and print it. You can download it. All of that's quickly available in those things right there. Okay. Now, we've got this article. This is good. I like this. How do we find more? How do we do more? Well, the really good place to start is, again, with our subject terms. Like I said, we could go up here and spell it correctly, and we can go through and reformat our search from this aspect. And you can by all means do that and keep searching. The other thing you can do is roll all this information up into one concise search bundle, and you can click this button over here called Find Similar Results. If we click on that, you'll see it'll dump it into one box, which you can't actually type like this. This is fairly readable for us, but really it's a bunch of machine stuff that is crunched in there. So ignore that it looks like a bunch of information shoved in there. And again, here we are with just under 12 million hits. Again, we would have to come in and we'd have to do full text, resubmit our limiters in here to get really specific again. We can do scholarly peer reviewed. And then again, we were pretty tight on our year to date. Here's our 1888. We know that's a fake number, so we'll go ahead and we'll put in 2015. And then because this article was from 2019, so we know we didn't date it out, this will start off, our first hit will be the article that we started with. And then starting with article number 2, we can go back through and start to say, okay, is this what we really like? Is this not what we really like? Is this going in a way that really helps us for our paper? And you'll find that sometimes they fall right in line and they're great for exactly what you're looking for, and you can just grab articles and just shove them all together. Sometimes you'll get to a point where you go, oh, this went in a really weird direction and I don't know why it went down this pathway, but it's not at all what I wanted. Well, remember, you've got multiple search boxes. So you can, by all means, reinstate something. So you can go maybe put this in. And again, remember, this article already has that in there, but just by putting this in, you will reinstate that and reinforce that, and it will find really specific articles. Why it works that way, I don't know, but it's nice because even if the information is already in here, you can push that in. Or you could do, let's see, styles, or maybe best practice, or guidelines, all of those kind of things, right? So you can play around with your search terms, and you can get really, really specific by adding more stuff in here. So that's really good. That's really nice. Again, we're limited to full text, so we should be able to read all of these articles really quickly. Let's see, is there anything else to add in while we're talking? I think that's a pretty good breakdown of how to start and how to get high quality information and break out our search. Yeah, that didn't do anything for me. So that's a good place to start. Another thing that you can do, and I know, again, a lot of students like to start with Google Scholar, and you can do basically the same. Spell it right. You can do basically the same breakdown on here. Okay. Well, one thing that you can do is you can go to your settings, and in your settings you can go, I think it's library links. Yeah. And you can go into your library links, and you can actually put in, and I've built it out. So I think if you put in CUNE or Concordia University Nebraska, et cetera, you can actually find us, and you can connect your Google Scholar to Concordia University Nebraska, and that will build out and give you a really quick, are you going to do it? There we go. So then if we actually have access to it, it will give you a link to Link Library. It will actually bring you directly to that. So that's a really nice way to find those articles. It will bring you straight in. The other thing that you can do, again, if you find, I apologize for the dinging in my ear if you can hear that. If you can't hear it, ignore it. I'm a crazy person. If you find an article that is really nice but you can't grab it, again, you can jump back to our library website. You can click on our interlibrary loan, click on our tab, and then you can fill out this sheet really quickly with all the information. Maybe it's here, right? With all this information in here, and you can get it. Now this article, it looks like you can read the whole thing, which is awesome. But if you can't, and it says, pay us $35, just request it. Just fill out your information, fill out all the required information here, and as soon as you hit submit down at the bottom, it will actually give you a little indication that you've been submitted, and it will send you an email. It'll send us an email, and we'll get you that back really quickly. On top of that, I'm sitting in my office. If you have any questions, you can email me or come talk to me, and we can walk through this, and then hopefully I'll come in and we'll talk in class, and we'll go further from there. Cool? So that's that. If you have any questions, replay the video, slow it down a little bit. If go back. If you have more on top of that, remember you can click on the research guide, and it will there's kind of a text walkthrough that will walk you through pretty much everything that we talked about today and how that works. And that's how to get going, finding higher level articles and how to use those. And then we'll talk more about what to do with them once you've found that in class. All right. So I look forward to talking to you soon, and hopefully this helps.